Oh yeah. You done here? No. Hit the wedding with Monica. Yeah, two. Yeah, two.
Okay.
Wedding.
Yeah, you wanna, Rudy, you wanna?
Raise it up. No,
Oh, yes, it is. Right.
no, I can still be.
No, but I'm saying you gotta be in there. Okay.
Yeah. Either fine.
So you should be able to hear me. You can hear me fine, Abigail? Give me a thumbs up. Okay. I don't remember how the setup. This is our old. What are you doing?
Excuse my coughing and nose blowing. I
What are you doing? Just leave it.
Promise you won't catch it.
Oh, I did. Look at the top left. See, it says live.
Oh, yeah. Live on YouTube.
Welcome to Garden of the Spirit.
It says off.
What do you say? On.
It says original sound for
Musicians.
oh,
Yeah.
Everything just. Welcome
Get his
to
fingers-
Garden of the Spirit, and let's not talk who chose that name. A class studying apples from the orchard for the second time beginning after Pesach 2014. This class meets and is broadcast from Long Meadow, Massachusetts, center of the universe. It is held in memory of Malka Ruth Bas Moshe, Margaret Vogel, blessed memory. Apples from the Orchard contains selections of teachings of Kabbalah from the Arizal, Basic Luria, based on the weekly Torah portion, superbly translated and explained by Rabbi Moshe Wisniewski. We are at the third chapter of Tisa, page 487, at the bottom. Guess what? The thing's there. The notes are there.
Not to where?
Over here.
Over there. Over there.
I didn't think to print them.
Oh.
Whoa. Okay. So today's thing is pretty straightforward. Ready? May have to hit the down arrow. That's the one in the middle on the bottom row. All right.
It's the middle one. The middle one, like the middle school. Get your exercise tonight.
Yeah. Well, hey, I don't remember how we did this. You know? Yeah.
Let's see if it's okay. The Torah often begins passages with Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Lemor. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying. In fact, this verse is written 100 times in the Torah. I think it was 100. Might be 50. I think it's 100 times. Sometimes the next words are speak to the children of Israel or something similar. Regarding Shabbos, the Torah changes. Instead of saying Hashem spoke to Moshe, it says Hashem said to Moshe, saying, or not spoke. The next words, and you, speak to the children of Israel, saying, just keep my Shabbats, is unique in several ways. And you, okay, why does it have to start with that? Just, the word Hebrew word ach, and Shabbats, which are in the plural. Okay, Alan, please begin. 487.
Honoring the masculine and the feminine. Hashem said to Moshe, saying, you shall speak to the Israelites, saying, but you will keep my Shabbats, for it is a sign between me and you for your generations to know that I, Hashem, sanctify you.
Okay, I write the word just. I prefer that translation. They write the word but. But you will keep my Sabbath. 488. Go ahead, Alan.
Regarding the meaning of these verses, we must explain why, when Hashem addresses Moshe, He usually does not phrase his command as it is phrased here. The usual phrasing is speak to the Israelites and say to them, or say to the Israelites. Here he says, you shall speak, emphasizing the word you.
And Rudy, scroll down to the 2. Sorry.
Well,
Keep going, no, keep scrolling.
Too far. Not going.
Yeah, there you go. 10 commandments are written twice in the Torah. The first time is in Parashat Yisro, when Hashem gave the Torah. The second time is in Parashat Voschanan, when Moshe repeated them at the end of his life. There are a few subtle differences. While the most famous one is that the first time it says Zachor, remember the day of Shabbos. The second time it says Shamor, keep the day of Shabbos. The second time in the commandment of Shabbos, it adds, as Hashem, your God, instructed you. So it'll say, keep the day of Shabbos as Hashem, your God, instructed you. Okay, go ahead. That's next one. So Shamor depends on the context, how you translate it. Shmira, Shamor is to guard. That's usually how we translate. In some contexts, or maybe even many contexts, the equivalent English word, the word that equivalent in our spoken vernacular would be the word to keep. Just think if you, something for safekeeping, if you have to keep something, you're going to keep it, means that you're watching over it. You're keeping it in a safe place. You're protecting it. And in a sense, that is what we mean here with Shabbos, like kind of protect the sanctity of Shabbos. Keep the Shabbos as a holy object, not really object, but as a holy idea. And the question is good because it helps understand the better the word some more. Okay, go ahead.
in order to explain this, we will first explain another discrepancy. The first time the Ten Commandments are recorded, the commandment to keep the Shabbos is phrased, remember, and the words as Hashem, your Hashem commanded you are not included. The Ten Commandments are recorded twice in the Torah. The first time is in the historical context of when they were given at Har Sinai. And the second time is in the context of Moshe's review of the Exodus just before he passes away at the end of the 40-year trek in the desert. These two versions of the Ten Commandments are largely the same, but there are some slight differences which allude to various things. The two versions of the first verse of the commandment to keep Shabbos compare as follows. First version, remember Shabbos day to keep it holy. Second version, guard Shabbos day to keep it holy, as Hashem, your Hashem, commanded you.
Hey, good. Rudy, scroll down. 3.
Down.
He was moving.
You got to move the cursor down there. Okay. 3. In the commandment to honor parents, the second set adds, as Hashem, your God, instructed you, and it also adds, Laman ulamani tavloch, so that it will be good for you. One moment. Okay, go ahead.
Similarly, the commandment to honor parents does not include the words in order that it will be well with you, as Hashem, your Hashem, commanded you. The next commandment after the commandment to keep Shabbos is the commandment to honor parents. These two versions of this commandment compare as follows. First version, honor your father and your mother in order that your days be long on the land Hashem, your Hashem, is giving to you. Second version. Honor your father and your mother as Hashem, your Hashem, commanded you, in order that your days be long and in order that it will be well with you on the land that Hashem, your Hashem, is giving you.
All right. So the two commandments that are different in the second commandments are the same idea. That means the fifth commandment to honor your father and mother, to honor your father and to keep Shabbos are both the same idea. The fifth, what it's going to say is, did I miss something? So to honor your father and mother, it says is understood in the simple sense. But Shabbos is the same idea. Why? I need to scroll down 5, put 5 at the top. The fourth commandment is to keep Shabbos. Shabbos contains a male component and a female component. When Shabbos begins, the female component is dominant. We read Kegavna, in Nusach Ari, we read a passage from the Zohar that begins Kegavna, which is about the elevation of Malchus, male component, feminine component. In the Kiddush at night, we refer to the meal associated with Chakal Tapuchin, which literally means an apple orchard, and which refers to Malchus. And in the Shmon Esrei, we use the feminine form. And we got to try to use it. And in the Shmon Esrei, we use the feminine form ba, in her, in it. V'enuchu va kol Yisrael mekadosh shmecha, and all of Israel, sanctify your name, will rest in her, because it's all talking about Malchus. At Mincha of Shabbos, or Shabbos afternoon, we use the plural form bum, in them. And in the Suda Shlishit, there's a passage there written by the Arizal. We refer to the meal associated with Ze'er Anpin. So Friday night, we refer to the meal of Chakal Tapuchin, the apple orchard, and Suda Shlishit, and which is Malchus. And Suda Shlishit, we refer to Shalshudas, refer to the meal associated with Ze'er Anpin, which is 6 spheres. So we say in them. Jewish souls come from Ze'er Anpin and Nukva interacting. So in a sense, Ze'er Anpin and Nukva are the parents of our souls. So when we keep Shabbos, we honor Ze'er Anpin and Nukva, who are our parents. And in that sense, the mitzvah of keeping Shabbos, the mitzvah of honoring parents, is the same idea. Sit tight. I'm getting out a siddur. If you guys who are out there in Radio Land would like to get one as well.
Sweet.
Here you go. Let's start with it. Okay, we're going to start with the siddur. Too young to remember when they talk about Radio Lands? Yeah. Okay. Or the magic of radio. Coming to you by the magic of radio. Let's start with the Shmon Esrei. And we looked this up, by the way. Let's start on page in the annotated siddur. Page 168.
Annotated siddur.
On page 168 in the annotated, we have 5 paragraphs. If anyone has a different siddur, you need a different page number, ask me, I'll help you. I'll try to help guide you there. In the 4th paragraph, there are 5 paragraphs on 168. The 4th paragraph, Elokeinu v'kevosenu, it says towards the end of the paragraph, V'anchilenu Hashem Elokeinu ba'ava brotzim Shabbos kadshecha v'yanuchu va kol Yisrael mekadosh shmecha. And Lord our God, grant us our heritage in love and goodwill, your holy Shabbat. May all Israel who sanctify your name rest thereon. So the Hebrew word for thereon is ba, which is in it, but since there's no it in Hebrew, it means in her. Okay. Next, let's go to 21 pages. Let's go to page 214. 213 at the bottom, 214. This is Shacharis of Shabbos. We have the same paragraph, Elokeinu, Elokeinu, Ritzeinu, V'nuchasenu. And on top of 214, at the very top line, Yanuchu vo kol Yisrael mekadsh shmecha. May all Israel who sanctify your name rest thereon. The English is the same, thereon. But the Hebrew vo means in it, in him. This case is the male form of it, which is in him, which will refer to Keser, spheros. And then we're going to turn to Mincha. And in Mincha, it is on page 262. Same paragraph, it's the second paragraph, middle of the page, the end of the paragraph. Shabbasos Shabbasos, plural Shabbos. We didn't have that before. Yenuchu vam kol Yisrael. And may all Israel sanctify your name rest on them. This is reflected in English. So it's them. Why? Because we're here referring to Ze'er Anpin, which has 6 spheros. So now it becomes them. Okay, so this is the male component now. Let's go look at the Kiddushes. Start with 179. 180. Nope. 178. At the bottom. Friday night, the Kiddush. Are we all there?
Not yet, hold on. I've got a different book.
I hope it's in there. Oh, that's
It'll be here. I just gotta get there. Hold on.
I hope it's in the siddur that you have. Jim, do you have it?
Not yet. I'm getting to the Kiddush.
Okay.
It's a different book. Okay, hold on a second. Kiddush for Friday evening. Okay.
Well, I hope this is in. Then I hope that it's in the Kiddush that in the siddur that you have.
Okay. I have an Arizal Tehillah Hashem, an old one.
Oh, okay. So I get you the page for that. It's 146.
That's what I got. I'm right there.
This is the meal of the holy Chakal Tapuchin.
Yep, right there.
Which means Kabbalistic terms for various manifestations of the Shekhinah. Prepare the meal of perfect faith, which is the delight of the Holy King. Prepare the meal of the King. This is the meal of the holy Chakal Tapuchin, and Zerampin and the Holy Ancient One come to join her in the meal. So for the Friday night meal, Chakal Tapuchin, apples of the orchard, is the dominant parts of Malchus, or dominant sphere. Let's next go to the day Kiddush, which, Jim, by you would be 202.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kiddush for Shabbos. Yep.
Yep. Did hear results from the Super Bowl, right? Easy. Trolling you. Okay. Yeah. What? Ghost you. That's why we start Yom HaShishi. The beginning of the pasuk is by Chulu Hashemayim. We start with like Yom HaShishi because it's a. So now we have 248 in the annotated. And I think it's 202 in Jim's, in the classic edition. So in 248, we have this line, Askinu Sudasa Dimunusa Shlemasa. Same thing, second paragraph. Prepare the meal of perfect faith, which is the delight of the Holy King. Prepare the meal of the King. This is the meal of the Holy Ancient One, which refers to Keser.
Mhm.
And the holy Chakal Tapuchin and Zerampin come to join him in the meal.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is Keser, and then let's go to Mincha. We don't have Kiddush and Mincha, but we do have the same poem in page 270 in Jim. It's right before Pirkei Avot.
Okay.
3,
And
6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 210.
Yeah, I'm right there.
Okay, so 270 in the middle. Prepare the meal of perfect faith. This is Shalshudas, which is the delight of the Holy King. Prepare the meal of the King. This is the meal of Ze'er Ampin. And the Holy Ancient One and the Holy Chakat Muchin come to join him.
Join him in the meal. Mhm. Meal of Zerampin.
Okay, so here is Ze'er Ampin. So here we have Friday night is the female component of Shabbos, and Shabbos day is the male component. Or Shabbos day, Shabbos afternoon, the male component of Shabbos. So now, Rudy, scroll down. I need 6. The Talmud says, there you go. If the Jewish people would keep 2 Shabbats, they would be redeemed. In the simple sense, it means if all Jews would observe Shabbat twice, all Jews would observe Shabbat twice. The Arizal says 2 Shabbats mean 2 components of Shabbat, Ze'er Ampin and Nukva.
Mhm.
Okay. Jim, you can try to read. Hopefully we'll hear you. To explain. 489.
To explain, these 2 commandments, observing the Sabbath and honoring parents, are equivalent. The latter is honoring one's bodily parents, while the former is honoring one's spiritual parents, that is, Zerampin and Nukva, who are referred to as the 2 Sabbaths in the sage's statement that if the Jewish people would keep 2 Sabbaths properly, they would be redeemed immediately. Inasmuch as every Jewish soul is produced by the union of Zerampin and Nukva, these Partsufim may be considered our spiritual parents. The sage's statement, we would now be redeemed if we keep the 2 Sabbaths, is usually understood to mean 2 Sabbaths in a row. Elsewhere, however, Arizal says that the mystical meaning of the statement is that we must keep the 2 aspects of the Sabbath, the feminine and masculine aspects, which are the Sabbath night and the Sabbath day. These 2 Sabbaths are clearly Zerampin and Nukva. By honoring them, that is, observing the Sabbath in accordance with its mystical dynamics, we fulfill the commandment to honor our parents spiritually, and we will be redeemed.
Wow. Bring back the mic. 7. The beginning of Parshas Kedoshim has many mitzvahs. In Parshas Kitzetzei, there are also many mitzvahs, but most are presented as cases. And I think that's the right way to say it, Jim.
Mhm.
The case law.
Mhm.
Are anecdotes. In Kedoshim, it is more like a list. Do this, don't do that.
Mhm.
Sometimes 2 or 3 are in one pasuk. A man should fear his mother and father and keep my Shabbats. Both mitzvahs are juxtaposed in one pasuk. We just explained how they're alike. But in addition, the Torah refers to Shabbos in the plural. Shabbosai, my Sabbaths,
Mhm.
which is what we just said here, meaning the 2 components of
2
Shabbos, the
Sabbaths.
male and the female.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
This is the mystical meaning of the verse. Everyone must fear his mother and his father, keep my Sabbaths. The fact that the Sabbath is here referred to in the plural alludes to these 2 Sabbaths, which correspond the father and the mother.
Okay, scroll down. There are 2 aspects to observing Shabbos. The first is to keep Shabbos solely because Hashem told us to. Why are we keeping Shabbos? What Hashem wants us to do. For this, we use the term shamor, to keep, guard. We keep or protect the directive of Hashem. The second aspect is to rest, relax, and to enjoy the physical side of the day of rest. Obviously, the first one is more sublime. We don't want people to observe Shabbos, or ideally, people should not be observing Shabbos because it's convenient, pleasant, relaxing. It's nice to have the family and so on. But ideally, it should be because Hashem told us. Not to take, obviously, not to take away from any of that. Okay, go ahead. There are two aspects.
Now, there are two aspects of observing the Sabbath. The first is to observe the laws of the Sabbath in all their details in order to fulfill the commandment, may he be blessed, that he commanded us, not for any other motive. The second is to rest from work on the Sabbath because we enjoy the fact that we rest from our work.
So that's the material side or the physical side of resting, of honoring Shabbos, of keeping Shabbos. Now, I'm sorry, 9 up there. In the Shemona Esrei of Shacharis on Shabbos, we say, Yismach Moshe b'matnas chalka. Let Moshe rejoice with the gift of his portion. The Medrash explains that Moshe convinced Paro, give Shabbos as a day of rest for the Jewish slaves. They would work, they would be more productive by the week if they would have one day to rest. Therefore, okay, go ahead, Jim.
So, the sage's explanation, the liturgical phrase, let Moshe rejoice, in the portion he was given, that Moses asked Pharaoh to grant the Jewish people one day off a week from making bricks in order that they have the strength to produce more on the other 6 days. Pharaoh agreed and gave them the Sabbath off.
10. Therefore, the Torah now says, and you speak to the children of Israel. Before you get credit for the day, you, Moshe, get credit for the day of rest the Jewish people, slaves, enjoyed in Egypt. But now you need to tell them there is a higher ideal in Shabbos, to keep Shabbos because it is a directive from Hashem. This is also the reason for the word ach, just. They translate as but, as the beginning of the phrase to keep Shabbos. You should not observe, what it's saying is, you should not observe Shabbos because it is physically enjoyable to rest, rather, just because it is a directive of Hashem. Just being that word here. Just because it is a directive of Hashem. Go ahead.
This then is what the Torah intends to imply by saying, you shall speak to the Israelites. God tells Moses, look, you, Moses, who asked Pharaoh to give them a day of rest, that is Sabbath, must now go yourself. Go tell them that from now on, you must not observe the Sabbaths for their own benefit, but rather these are my Sabbaths. I am the one obligating them to observe this commandment. Therefore, you should observe it only for my sake and not for their own. This is why the word but is prefaced in this verse. It implies that they should observe the Sabbath only because they are my Sabbath. For it is a sign to know that I, God, sanctify them, not for their benefit or enjoyment. There is, of course, nothing wrong with enjoying observing God's commandments, but this motivation must always be held in proper perspective. We must always observe all of God's commandments unconditionally as an expression of our unconditional love for him. Rabbi Shir Zalman of Ladi put it, if God had commanded us to simply chop wood for no apparent reason, we would chop wood with the utmost enthusiasm. Once we have committed ourselves to observing the commandments unconditionally, there is also room for appreciating their tangible benefits.
Okay. 11, Rudy. The first text of the Ten Commandments does not include the phrase, as Hashem instructed you. At that time, soon after they left Egypt, it was okay to keep Shabbos for the physical benefit it brought. It is a mitzvah that is logical. It makes sense that a person needs a break from work. Okay? Go ahead, Jim.
Okay. As I said, the plural my Sabbaths alludes to Zeranpin and Nukva. The first version of the Ten Commandments does not include the words as God, your God, commanded you, in order that allude to the first reason for observing the Sabbath, the one that includes the reason of the Jewish people's benefit. This aspect of the commandment is the one that our human logic can relate to, and it, our logic, decrees we should observe the Sabbath in order that your ox and your donkey rest.
Okay. 12. Second text of the Ten Commandments was taught after 40 years in the desert. At this point, it was fitting for the Jewish people to observe Shabbos for a higher purpose, solely as a directive of Hashem. Therefore, it says, as Hashem, your God, instructed you.
Second verse. Okay, so
Page
second
491
version
at
of
the top.
pardon? The second version of the Ten Commandments, the Torah mentions the second reason, which is solely in order to fulfill the Creator's command. This being the meaning of the phrase, as God, your God, commanded you.
And a major difference, I think this is it. A major difference between the first and second text of the Ten Commandments is directive regarding Shabbos. And I said before, the first text reads, Zachor, remember the Shabbos day. And the second text reads, Shamor, keep the Shabbos day. This is why we mention in L'chadodi, we say Shamor v'Zachor v'Dibur Echad. That the words Shamor and Zachor, when Hashem said to keep Shabbos, when the Torah says to keep Shabbos and to remember Shabbos, they were both said simultaneously. So Hashem spoke two words at the same time. The first text, the word Zachor is recorded, and the second text, the word Shamor is recorded. To remember, what's the difference between them? To remember is to actively mark Shabbos. It's the male act of being proactive. To keep is the passive act of refraining from forbidden labor, which is a female act. Therefore, the word Shamor, keep, which is the second text of the Ten Commandments, is the female component. At this point, the Jewish people should observe Shabbos in a passive sense, just because Hashem instructed it, and not because of the pleasure and enjoyment we get out of it. Okay, go ahead, Jim. This explains.
This explains why the second version of the Ten Commandments, the commandment to keep the Sabbath, begins, guard the Sabbath day to keep it holy. The second version of the Ten Commandments is from the female principle, which is alluded to by the word guard, as is known. The word for remember, Zachor, is related to the word for male, Zachor. Remembering is the active aspect of observing Sabbath, refers to the active declaration of the day's holiness made at the beginning in the Kiddush and in the end Havdalah. Guarding is the passive aspect of observing the Sabbath, refers to the passive cessation from work, which opens us up to the heightened divine consciousness of informing reality on the Sabbath.
Okay. Similarly, there are 14, I'm sorry. When it says the second text, as Hashem your God instructed you, it means to keep according to the directives of Ze'er Anpin, which was the first text. I'm not clear exactly what this means. Like my mind goes mush at this point. Go ahead. Jim, the feminine principle.
The feminine principle now, that is the second version of the Ten Commandments, tells the Jewish people, guard the Sabbath day, as Ze'er Anpin, alluded to by the words God your God, has already commanded you previously in the first version of the Ten Commandments. The name for God in the phrase God your God is Chavaya, which is associated with Zer Anpin, as we've noted previously.
But basically, what it's saying is, as Havaya commanded you, means that that Havaya, or the Rampin in the first set, as was stated there. 15. Similarly, we have this for Shabbos. Now, there are two reasons to honor your parents. The other commandment. The first is because of everything they've done for you, beginning with giving you life. Okay. The second reason is because honoring parents reflects giving honor to the parents of our souls, which the parents of our souls can be called HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the community of Israel, otherwise known as, drumroll please, Zer Anpin and Nukva. So honoring our parents means that we are acknowledging Zer Anpin and Nukva, just like we had on Shabbos. Abigail, you ready?
Yes.
Bottom of 491.
Now there are also two reasons for observing the commandment of honoring parents. The first is because it is a commandment dictated by human logic, namely that a child must honor his father and mother because they created him, brought him into the world, and ceaselessly exerted themselves on his behalf. The second is in order to allude to his commandment to honor our spiritual father and mother, i.e. the Holy One, blessed be he, in the community of Israel, that is Zer Anpin and Nukva. The sages typically refer to God as the Holy One, blessed be he. In Kabbalah, this appellation is said to refer to Zer Anpin, which is holy, i.e. removed from the world, and relative to Nukva, which descends into the lower realms, as we know. The sages often refer to the divine presence or the Shekhinah as the community of Israel, Knesset Yisrael, indicating that it is the collective origin of all Jewish souls, the womb from which they emerge as they descend from Atzilus into the lower worlds.
Okay. Now, the first text of the Ten Commandments states, a reward for honoring parents so that your days will be lengthened. Another way to say long life. But the language is special because it says significant because it says your days will be lengthened. Just as there are 6 days of the week and Shabbos, there are 6 spheres and Shabbos. There are 6 spheres and Malchus. In other words, days can be a reference to Ze'er Anpin. 6 days of the week, 6 spheres and Ze'er Anpin.
Okay.
Okay.
In the first verse.
And so what it's saying is, so that's what it's saying is that you have a special connection here with your days of length, meaning you honor your parents, you are acknowledging the Ze'er Anpin, which is what we just said. Okay, go ahead.
In the first version of the Ten Commandments, excuse me, the Torah mentions the first reason by saying, in order that your days be long, referring to the increase of the 6 extremities of Zer Anpin, which are called the 6 days of creation. The 6 extremities of Zer Anpin are the 6 sephiros that metamorphose into the parts of Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. They are called extremities since they are associated with the 6 directions of the 3 dimensions of space. These 6 sephiros are associated as well with the 6 days of creation. The association with the dimensions of space and the days of creation, time, alludes to that aspect of Zer Anpin that forms the conceptual framework for the physical world. In other words, by keeping the commandment to honor one's physical parents, we increase the life force reaching this world. This divine beneficence is expressed in the world as long life.
Okay, so in the that's the first text of the Ten Commandments. The second text of the Ten Commandments, it says, so that you'll have your days will be lengthened, which is the same idea. Then it also says, L'man yitavlach, so that it will be good for you. And the Arizal connects the word good with the intellect, so that the intellect will be dominant, will grow. And he bases, I don't know what this is, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, saying the Shemon Esrei, the very first bracha that Hashem purveys good kindness. So the word Tov over there, for some reason, is connected with the Mochin, with the intellect. And that is an outcome of honoring your parents. The honoring your parents makes you smarter, basically. Okay, we should tell that to our kids. Okay. And then that's how I got the way I am. But the second version, go ahead. I didn't get to notes on this.
But the second version of the Ten Commandments refers to the proper spiritual reason for performing this commandment, which produces an abundance of divine beneficence, and therefore two types of reward are mentioned. The first is, in order that your days be long, referring to the increase of the 6 extremities as mentioned. In addition, there is the reward of, in order that it be well with you, which refers to the influx of higher mentality. Mentality is alluded to by the word for good or well, tov, as we have explained in our commentary on the phrase, who does good deeds of loving kindness, hasadim tovim. In the first blessing of the Amida, this indicates that doing this commandment for its spiritual motivation will cause one's intellect to mature as well. This is why, in the context of this reason, it is written, as God your God commanded you. By observing this commandment on the spiritual level, honoring Zeranpin and Nukva, by increasing divine consciousness in the world, we are rewarded in kind. We achieve a higher level of divine consciousness and spiritual maturity.
And it says here that we say kabed es avicha ve'esimecha, honor your father and mother. In the Hebrew, we have the word es, which is before the object of a sentence, but it has no meaning on its own. It has no translation. It's just like a placeholder before the object. And however, just that sometimes it's there and sometimes the Torah omits it. So it can go either way. The fact that it's there indicates that there's something else that's not written. And sometimes the word does mean with. So it shows that there's that there, it could indicate there's something else there. So he says here that the two words es, honor, kabed es avicha ve'esimecha, would mean not just your physical parents, but also the parents of our souls, Zeranpin and Nukva of Atzilus. Page 493.
Another allusion to the above may be found in the fact that the word et alludes to an additional entity. The two words et in the verse, honor your father and your mother, allude to your spiritual supernal father and mother, i.e. Zeranpin and Nukva. The Hebrew particle et is usually not translated into English and serves simply to indicate the direct object. However, the sages often interpret its presence in a verse to indicate an allusion to something besides the explicit object of the verb. Here, the et before the word for father alludes to Zeranpin, and the et before the word for mother alludes to Nukva.
All right. A big insight into these two commandments. A whole nother way of looking at Shabbos, even a whole nother way of looking at how to honor our parents.
Yep.
Can I ask a quick question from the text?
Sure.
So in 490 at the bottom, it says, it is talking about, let's say, this aspect of the commandment is the one that our human logic can relate to. So that would be the first, right? The masculine that we, and it goes on, it says, and it, i.e. our logic decrees that we should observe Sabbath in order that your ox and your donkey rest. So I get the point, but it's very interesting that it's your ox and all that ox refers to, like your yetzer. and your donkey, your flesh, your hamor. So your
Okay.
yetzer gets a rest because the day is Shabbos. Thoughts? Anything else that you've studied? Your yetzer and your flesh get a rest. No? There must be something written on that.
Hamor, the Hebrew word hamor, donkey, is like chomer, which is material,
Physical.
materialism.
So like your flesh, would that be? Your body?
Yeah.
Get-
Your
Not the-
physical self, maybe.
The physical. self.
Your physicality,
Yeah.
your material self.
And then your ox.
Ox may,
Like
and
an ox.
I'm speculating. I'm not,
Yeah.
no, I'm not, didn't.
Labor,
explanation for you. But-
labor,
What?
ox, work, labor.
Ox refers to-
Ox does the field, labors. It churns the
Ox
land.
refers to, like indulgences,
Yeah, also. but
things that
it-
are,
Even if you turn it into good though, an ox, you take that ox
Yes,
part of
yes.
your soul, you can work the land and grow crops and do these beneficent things with your physicality. So it can be in a positive sense.
Like your
so that's right. But we're saying these are gonna rest. We
Yeah,
think
the arrest, you
side.
take them out, you put them out, you put them in the,
Avidase, so the word ox, and ox, I'm sorry, can refer in sometimes to our indulgences, not the refined indulgences.
right.
What's the opposite word?
Gross.
Gross, aggressive indulgences, urges.
What is the word that people are very gregarious? I don't know if that's. I always think of the ox.
Gross or aggressive, base
Base. Yeah.
indulgences. A sheep, on the other hand, are more, subtle, pleasurable type things. An ox would maybe be more with China, the bull in the China shop,
but we can take that
person
energy,
who pushes his way through.
you can take that energy and turn it around and use it in a refined fashion, which is our job, the same way we take the sheep's energy. The ox's energy is very important to take. Keeps us up doing this class right now.
That's
what I'm
right.
I'm thinking
That's right.
like the animal soul and harnessing the power of the animal soul for
Yeah.
holiness, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That was interesting. And that's the first, the masculine, Zeranpin side of Shabbos.
Okay.
Very good. Of course, I like it. Didn't have to bring my calculator this week.
No questions. Okay.
All right, thank you.
God
I
won't
will-
see you all next week.
Nope, not me. Not me.
More.
I'll be in